Hi friends, my name is Bhavya Mangla. I am working with DNVGL. Today I am going to talk about a very interesting topic, that is with respect to production planning and control. In the previous video I talked about what is production planning process and what are the key inputs required to make the production planning process effective. As I stated in the previous video, in this video I am going to talk about what are the possible challenges that an organization faces in the PPC process, what are the impacts that it has on the organization as well as the customer, and what are the possible reasons and what possible measures that organization can take to avoid the challenges and to make the customer satisfied. I would like to broadly categorize all these things into three parts. The first one is related to customer, second one is related to organization, and third one is related to supplier. So let me first start with customer. Now with respect to customer, there are two kind of issues that come. One is the erratic customer schedule and second is with respect to not order driven process. Now in both the cases, the impact to the organization is that there's a lot of inventory that get piled up in the organization as well as at the supplier end. Moreover, organization is never sure that when the plan is going to change and what possible action organization to take with respect to that. So the entire supply chain is always under the pressure. Now, what are the possible reasons for that? Now, one possible reason could be that customer is not properly established or they don't have a proper infrastructure to plan their supplies, and that's why whatever expectation that they're having from the organization, it is always very erratic. Now to talk about possible solution, there is very little that organization can do except this, that organization can look into the previous 2 or 3 years, that what is the trend for that particular customer, which are those months where the supplies, the requirement was high, which are the months where the requirement was going low, which are the particular products out of say 10 products where there is more variation, and which are the products where the deviation is very limited. So based on that, the organization can use some statistical studies and then can decide that okay, these are the ways in which we can manage our minimum and maximum inventory level. This is the way which we can pre-plan our production plan and make sure that we can fulfill the customer requirements. Now talking about second part, that is with respect to suppliers. Now again, from supplier there can be two possible kind of failures. One is delivery related and secondly is quality related. In both the cases, quality as well as delivery, it again leads to change in the production planning process in the organization. It can also impact the customer because in case the supplies are not coming from supplier, it may impact the entire planning process and organization may not be able to produce the product as per the customer requirement. Now what can be the possible reasons for that? Now one possible reason is that maybe there may be few suppliers who are always have some quality issue and organization is not taking much action on that. They are still expecting that the suppliers will improve. So one of the possible solution could be that organization can talk to that particular supplier, can tell that how it is impacting the entire supply chain. Maybe they can think about reducing the share of business. Maybe they can think about having an alternate supplier so that there can be some pressure that can be put on that supplier, that in case that supplier is not going to improve, organization has an alternate with respect to that. Second reason that I've seen in many times is that many times organization, when giving the schedule to the supplier, they are mainly talking and focusing on the quantity part and they are not focused on the time when the material is required. But if you look at from the OEM's perspective, OEMs are not only looking at the quantity part, but they are always particular about the time when they actually need the material. So it's very important for the purchase process to see that when they are giving the schedule to the supplier, it should not be only with respect to the quantity, but it should also include parameter with respect to the time. In fact, the supplier rating process also requires that it is not only the quantity which is important, but the time when the material is received is equally important. By taking care of that and by communicating to the supplier in the right way, that can also be ensured. Now, when we talk about the organization, there are many different kind of challenges that organization can face. So let me share that one by one. The first and the most important is with respect to the capacity planning. Many times it is being observed that either the organization does not have a proper capacity planning, and even if there is a capacity planning sheet, it is not being updated for years. And third, very important reason is that even if it is there, that does not contain very important parameters which can impact the entire planning process, maybe with respect to the preventive maintenance, with respect to plant shutdown, calibration plan, and there are so many further inputs which are there, which should be included to make sure that whatever capacity sheet that we are making, it is taking care of all those things. Now, what an organization can do? First of all, capacity planning has to be done by a cross-functional team, the people who are competent, who are authorized to take some decision. Then there should be a periodic frequency wherein the capacity planning should be reviewed to see that whether it is adequate, or maybe because of any changes in the processes, it needs to be reviewed again. Another important thing is that whether all the relevant inputs which impacts the capacity planning or which should be a part of capacity planning to ensure that whatever is being planned can be achieved, whether they are being considered while making the capacity planning sheet or not. Then the second point with respect to internal challenges is with respect to the preventive maintenance plan. It is being generally observed that preventive maintenance is planned say every 3 months or 6 months, and there are so many machines that are piled up for a particular month. So that impacts the entire planning process. So maybe the preventive maintenance can be scattered depending upon the criticality of the product, depending upon the kind of failures that the machine is happening, and based on that the preventive maintenance can be planned. Because if preventive maintenance is not planned in line with the production planning process, either there will not be any production, or in case organization has to do some production, then there will be some compromise with the production with the preventive maintenance plan. And many times it happens that preventive maintenance is only done on paper. So what happens in that case? Suddenly there is some breakdown, and when the breakdown comes, it impacts the production planning process even much more than what earlier should have been. So that leads to the second point, unplanned shutdown. Why unplanned shutdown happens? The unplanned shutdown is happening because the maintenance process is not doing the work effectively with respect to the critical machines. They are not making sure that the effectiveness of preventive as well as predictive maintenance is being ensured, and that results in sudden breakdown of their key equipment, and the entire production planning process go haywire, and that impacts the customer line, that impacts the entire production process, and customer get dissatisfied. So it's very important that when an organization is planning their preventive maintenance plan, they make sure that all the relevant machines, they are being identified and proper preventive maintenance is planned for them. That brings next point, that is with respect to inventory levels. Again, it is being generally observed that either the inventory levels are not defined in the organization, that how much should be the minimum and maximum inventory level for their incoming material, in-process material, and final product, or even if the inventory level is being defined, it is not being followed. Now, the objective of inventory level is to make sure that in case of any exigency, in case of any problem, customer is not getting impacted. So it's very important for organization to see that a CFT approach is being used to identify for each and every product, each and every component, how much should be the right inventory, and then it should be critically followed so that customer is not getting impacted with respect to that. Then the next important point is with respect to calibration process. Now, this is one process which is generally not considered in the production planning process. It is being assumed that production planning process and calibration plan, they are two different things, but actually it is not so. Because there are so many machines where there are critical equipment that need to be calibrated, and machine has to be stopped while doing the calibration. So if the PPC process is not taking into consideration that when calibration is due and for how many hours machine will not be under use, it can create chaos, and whatever plan that we made to fulfill the customer expectation, that can be impacted. So it's very important that the calibration plan should be aligned with the production planning process, and there should be a good communication between these two processes so that things can be done in an effective way. And lastly, very important point, that is with respect to availability of competent manpower. If you look in the organizations in general, we all are aware that in certain months there are people who take long leaves, There are certain festivals where the majority of people, they go to their hometown, and while doing the capacity planning, if the production planning process is not taking that into factor, then there can be a possibility that we may commit to the customer that we are going to fulfill their expectation, but actually we don't have that much of manpower to take care of that. So if you see, I talked about the challenges in three parts. I talked about challenges with respect to customer, challenges which are internal to the organization, and challenges which are coming from the supplier. If organization takes into consideration all these things, looks into what is the impact of that, what are the possible reasons why it is happening, and then take suitable action, then there is a very high possibility that production planning process will work effectively. Well, in case you want to know a little bit more about this particular thing in detail, there is a link below in the blog. You can click that and you will know more information about that. And in case you want to get these kind of videos regularly, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you.